Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
Representative Lauren Ashley Simmons explained to us the basic nature of the fight, and we had that conversation. I would really love if you could explore for us what the legislative tactics are going forward. We know that, as I understand it, the goal is to run out this electoral session. Have you all
Mhm.
given any thought to what would happen if, upon your return after the 30 days, the governor decides to declare another special session to really provide Donald Trump the pathway to cheating victory that he truly desires?
So that's highly likely. I want to say that last session, and I'll preface all of this with this is my second quorum break. So this is the second time, and I
Mm.
wear this badge of quorum breaking proudly. We last time we had four special sessions
Wow.
after the 23 session. That might be, yes, correct. We had four in 23. Um, and so he can do that. He can call as many as he wants, as many special sessions as he wants. And we are thinking that through. I don't think we can walk this walk daily without thinking about what that looks like, what our next steps are, what are the things that we have to get said. And that's already been happening. When we had, or they allowed, I'll say, those 8 hearings, only one of them being done with having seen the maps, correct?
Wow. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, Representative, it looks like we lost your audio. Let's see if we can get her back. And that's one of the things I'm glad she mentioned that I want to raise again is that Representative Simmons also said the same thing. They were having redistricting sessions with no maps. Representative Bowers, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay. So yeah, that was a fact. And 99% of the witnesses that came to testify during public testimony all said they were strongly against and in opposition. The other tricky thing that they did during those hearings pre map revealing was only allow people to testify neutral or on the bill. And so
Oh.
they said you can say whatever you want to say, but you can only be registered as neutral or on. So they wouldn't even let you really register in full opposition, even though people were strongly testifying against whatever map would be presented. And
Now, I
then,
want to pause you there if I can, because
mhm,
we're at the same time that you and I are having this conversation, and I could talk redistricting all day. I also want to make sure that the audience is clear about what's happening.
mhm,
Usually, Representative, at least how we do it in New York, and I know New York and Texas are different, but usually when you're going to have hearings about
mhm,
redistricting maps, you have the maps displayed. People have been able to look at the maps, and in New York,
correct.
people can download the maps. They can zoom in. We have this amazing redistricting and you mapping project at the CUNY Graduate School. Shout out to Steve
Mhm,
Romolowski and the
mhm.
folks in that team who do that work. But you're commenting on the maps. Am I to understand that they had you all in a hearing about redrawing district lines in a gerrymandered effort without actually even seeing the maps that they were going to propose to do so?
You are absolutely accurate in
My
your
God.
thoughts and in your statement. And that
My
is
God.
clearly what I am saying. There was only one hearing after the maps were released,
Oh.
where more people came out. Then you could register against it. But it really struck a nerve when I heard them say you can only, leading up those hearings before, saying you can only register on or neutral.
Well, let me pause you there again because in my lawyer brain, that to me would indicate that all of the testimony gathered at the hearing, there's nobody who testified technically in opposition. So if I'm not paying attention as a jurist, I'm just going to say, oh, well, everybody who came to testify was either neutral or thought it was a good thing. That feels like a trick of the devil.
It's real trickery, real, I hate to say
Wow.
tomfoolery, but it really is. It really, really is. And, you know, I sat in on I was not on the select committee, but I sat in on the Austin hearing and on the Dallas hearing and in Arlington. And I'll never forget. being seated next to two of my Republican colleagues and our colleagues from the other side. And I asked them, do y'all have any questions? And they both replied, oh, no, we're good. We're good. Because this is why we know it was all part of the plan. And they were radio silent, mouths just zipped quiet. They didn't have anything to say. And they're like, and I want to say in all seriousness, we know too that our efforts a lot of times can only, because we're outnumbered, can only be a delay. And so this is what you were talking about when you think about strategy. So even back then during those hearings, we were making sure that the questions that needed to be asked, the statements that needed to be made were being made. So that is in the record. We'll of course have our own floor strategy when and if we go back to the floor, and he calls us back, because we certainly, the play is to run it out for this one. But we'll have that strategy play out on the floor as well, and continue to make it plain and clear really what's happening, and that this is a racist gerrymandering. It is racist gerrymandering. I don't want to be unclear and make it sound like, oh, it's just a power grab. We can't use that language. We have to go ahead and make it plain and say what it is. And it certainly will dilute our political power as Black and brown people, but really it affects Black people a whole lot more. I heard what you said about them trying to roll us back to slavery, and that's certainly right. I had a gentleman that was an immigrant, you know, he works at one of our airports. And he said to me, leading up to the last election, he kept saying to me, I'm voting for Trump. He gave us that check. Da, 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 da. He kept on going. This is a man of color, right? And I kept saying, you're really going to put us in harm's way. Our community will be attacked further, and you're setting us up for failure. Like I kept telling him every time I would go through the airport. So just recently, maybe a week ago, I come through the airport again, and there he is. He works at the airport. I looked at him and I was like, and he said, I said, you helped get us in this mess. And you know what he said? He said, I know. He said, I know, and I'm so sorry. He said, you were right. You were exactly right. He said, you said that he was going to start to deport not only people that came across illegally, but people that have a birthright and are citizens here. He was going to put them in, you said all of this, put them in detention centers, take them from their family. He said, you told me this, and I didn't believe you. And when we look at these maps, we have to know that it will continue to dilute our power. There are, in this state, 4 million Black people out of the 31 million in the state. There are about 4 million of us. We will go down to one representative for 2 million. That's not even all of us. And so when you talk about having people that represent you, that look like you, that understand your plight, that understand the high cost of living that you're facing, the housing unaffordability, when it comes to high groceries, when it comes to those SNAP benefits being taken away, food out of children's mouths, when it comes to the lack of Medicaid, when those cuts hit, when it comes to our maternal mortality and morbidity, all of it, our access to health care is gone. And I just hope, and I have to say this because I've been feeling this, that come November, because this is a mid-decade racist gerrymandering still. That's what it is. Let's make it plain and label it right. That people won't forget.
Mm.
That you won't forget, and you'll take this to the ballot box. You know, for me, when we went through COVID last time with this terrible president that we have telling us to drink bleach and do all kinds of stuff,
Mm.
I suffered a battle with COVID prior to the vaccine coming out. And I will say this, it was pretty bad. But all the millions of people that died, I never forgot. And I am not one
Mm.
that had family to pass. But there are millions, there are thousands and millions of people that did.
Right.
And I
My
don't know
God.
how they forgot.
Mm.
In Texas, and this is my last thing for right now, but when we look at the hundreds of people, over 100 people and young lives that died in the recent floods,
That's
like
right.
I don't cuss that much, sis, but how in the hell do you forget? How do you
Mm.
forget?
Mm. Well, I cuss a lot. And I will be doing a whole lot of cussing between now and this November because we have elections. Y'all, there are elections happening this year, but the midterms really in 2026. We are going to do everything that we can at this channel and on all
Yeah.
of our platforms to make sure that people remember. And I'd like to, if we could, turn to those lost souls at the hand of the flooding, because the flooding that most of us paid attention to was preceded by flooding in another part of Texas where there were also fatalities. And when you draw your district maps so that people are either packed together, so that you take, that 4 million people, you pack half of them, 2 million of them into one district, or you crack them up and you spread them across all the districts to where they never are able to effectively advocate, that's not just going to have an implication at the national level. It also minimizes the voice of people to make change within the confines of their own state. Talk to us about what Texans face if this redistricting is able to happen, if Donald Trump is able to issue the FBI to come do to you all what ICE is doing to anybody who's got a shade of melanin darker than mine, if they are able to come and find y'all and bring you back and force this into being, what will that do to the ability of Texans to determine what? Because as I understand, I saw some numbers recently that said Texas has more registered Democrat voters than registered Republican voters, and that
Yeah.
those numbers are increasing. What would it do to those who live in Texas, to their ability to advocate for the sort of world that they want to see within their state, if these sorts of racist district, Jim Crow desiring lines are able to be implemented?
Simply, they just won't have a voice. In the last redistricting, I was the chair of the Dallas delegation. So
Mm.
that meant I had to make sure that Dallas County was taken care of. Not only my own district, but everybody, especially the Democratic members in Dallas County. I had to make sure that with all the cracking and packing, as you said, that their districts weren't torn apart. So there's
Mm.
I can give the best example I can give when we know that they try to say that these maps are drawn race blind. They are not drawn race blind.
That's
I
right.
have constituents that have told me they went into the polling place location and went to the ballot box and got inside and screamed when they saw their ballot because they
Wow.
live just down the street. Our kids might have gone to school together, vacation Bible school or whatnot. And they're like,
Mm.
where is my candidate? Because I
Mm.
know this is the person that I've been supporting, that has been working on my behalf. And
Right.
I came here to vote for her, right? But I can't because
Mm.
now the maps have been drawn and I'm drawn out of her district.
My God.
So that is how it
Whew.
happens. We shop at the same Walmart or not Target anymore. I have to
Right.
say
Right.
that. Not
Right.
Target, but we definitely shop at the same Walmart and other grocery stores.
You know what's interesting about this to me, in addition to, because again, I could live in this conversation for the next several weeks, and apparently we're gonna have to in some way, shape, or form, because this does not seem like it's going to be going away. I had
Mhm.
heard a conversation where Representative Jasmine Crockett, congressional representative out of the state of Texas, had
Mhm.
indicated that while her seat, even though they had drawn her physically out of her seat, she was still going to be a very viable candidate. She said, "Don't you worry, I'm coming back." But what
Yeah.
she noted was that during the redrawing of the maps, they had also not just shifted her geographic lines, they also used what the court in the North Carolina case said was surgical precision. They also used that surgical precision to extract from her district the money generators, to remove
Yes.
museums and hospitals and other institutions. So y'all, redistricting, yes, is about your voting lines, but it's also about the industry that is within your district, the money makers that are in your district, because those are job creators or not if they're taken out.
Mhm.
Those are culture supporters or not if they're taking out. Representative Bowers, we only have a moment or two left, but talk to us again about, if you could, the nature of community participation in, because we tried so hard to get in New York City, where when I'm not on these airways, I run a law center. We had a Black New Yorkers for Fair Redistricting organization in New York City. We had a Check Black campaign during the census. We did everything that we could,
Mhm.
but it was hard to get people to really understand. If you don't have a civics class and somebody ain't making it sexy to you, it's hard to get people to understand. Talk to us about the role of community participation in redistricting
5 minutes.
hearings in the census. And again, we only have a minute, but obviously it matters a lot that people are engaged and have their voices heard at the outset of these processes. What say you about that?
So before you mentioned the word census, just know too, mid-decade with redistricting, this is done with old census numbers. So we didn't wait till the 10 years to really get another census and clearly have maps that reflect the population that we're serving. So the
Right.
other part about it, when you talk about those money generators, they just said, hey, we can't hurt them at the ballot box, we're going to hurt them in their pocketbooks. And certainly when you look at representatives, we need those revenue generators in our communities, like you said, because they provide jobs for our constituents. They provide money that flows within those communities. Those are
Mm,
the partners that we work with to make sure we're bringing money back and
wow.
funding is appropriated. So that's why I say if they can't hurt us at the ballot box, I said we're going to hurt them in the pocketbook.
My God. Representative Bowers, it has been a real pleasure having this
Oh
conversation
my.
with you. I hate that we're meeting under these circumstances, Sarah, but I
You
do believe
too.
that there are no accidents. And I think the world right now has eyes on Texas and the many powerful members of our community who are doing the work of real advocacy.